On this special edition of Defense News Weekly, we take a look at some of the highlights from the past year, from the Paris Airshow to AUSA to the Reagan National Defense Forum. With in-depth interviews, up-close video, and leading analysis, this is Defense News Weekly. Welcome to Defense News Weekly. I'm Jeff Martin. 2017 was a great year for defense news. We're going to take you on location with us to show some of our reporting from around the world. First up was the International Defense Exhibition, or IDEX, in Abu Dhabi. Here's a look at some of the highlights from our coverage.
Tell us, how do you see the defense market evolving for helicopters in the Middle East, and how are you shaping your business there?
Wow, that's a broad question. First of all, I'd like to say it's really great to be at IDEX again this year. There's a lot of exciting things happening.
You all are making the international debut of the MPT multi-purpose vehicle. Can you talk to me a bit about the appeal for the international customer?
Absolutely, Jill. So we've visited with our customers, and they've told us certain things that they wanted to see. And there are two main things that we have been hearing from our customers. One is they want to have an easier acquisition process in terms of how to get vehicles. And the second part, especially here in the region, is all about industrialization, local content. So what we've done with the MPT is when we've designed, developed, and tested a vehicle chassis platform that is specific to the environment here in the Middle East.
Bell Helicopter is investing in a lot of innovative technologies and capabilities. We see that potential growing even more in the Middle East and other parts of the world right now. Some of the products that we've got currently on production are state-of-the-art, and we're looking to the future with some of our future vertical lift opportunities as well. So we see a bright future for Bell Helicopter, especially in the Middle East.
Where are the target markets you anticipate for this fighter?
Well, first of all, we anticipate local production of here in the Arab Emirates for the needs of the Emirates. And of course, for the neighboring countries.
So does the development that's happening in the Middle East, does it benefit Northrop from a global perspective?
I believe that development, by being more efficient, let's say the Ministry of Defense will be a lot more efficient, those extra budgets, then I think that will give them the opportunity to procure more requirement, to fulfill all their requirements. So from that perspective, absolutely, it does work with us really well. But also, I think if we have a pipeline of local talents that's being built, ready for us, so when we win the big programs, it's a lot easier for us to tap into these talents and make them, the Northrop Grumman of Saudi, Northrop Grumman of UAE.
Defense news was also on the ground for the Paris Airshow, and everyone's minds were on the effect President Trump might have on the global aerospace market. Here's Executive Editor Jill Itoro on what attendees had to say.
I am here on a very sunny day at the Paris Airshow, where the F-35 has dominated people's attention. We saw the jet fly earlier today, and they certainly showed all sorts of tricks, seeming to want to prove that they can outmaneuver any jet in the Air Force. We also saw quite a bit of conversation about Trump policy, in particular the America First policy, which everyone is talking about quite a bit. We spoke to some industry experts on whether or not that is actually impacting their relationships with both customers and partners around the world.
I don't think, from a Boeing company perspective, I don't think we have any issues with this because as we continue to sell globally, what you'll also see that produces jobs back home in the States as well. And so it's a win-win for all of us. We get to get American products out in the marketplace with the capabilities that these nations need. And at the same time, we may be able to not only do they get the jobs as they've developed some of the unique features or capabilities themselves, and then it most definitely results in jobs back in the States. So it really is a win-win.
In addition to industry, we had conversations about America First with some leaders in government. Of course, France has been rather vocal about its opinions in terms of the Trump administration and the America First policy, as have many of the NATO allies around the world.
This is a time perhaps to pay a tribute to what the United States and the brave people of the United States who came to Europe 100 years ago and during the Second World War to free us. We must remember that. We have to remember that. And despite what could happen in politics. Politics is politics, but the nations are allied, and we must keep those nations together. The world of today and tomorrow is even more challenging than it was in the past. So it's the time that allies come together bilaterally, within NATO, between EU and the US. Every single bond link is important to keep on capitalizing on what is unifying us. I mean, our values, our common values, our vision of the future. We have achieved a tremendous goal in securing Europe and giving Europe a chance to grow in prosperity, in freedom. So we cannot lose that.
The Middle East has been a center of global conflict for years, but recently defense companies in that part of the world have begun to export their own military equipment. In August, Pooja Murgai went to Abu Dhabi and got a first-hand look at one of those companies.
The desert in the United Arab Emirates gets to 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's where Nimmer Automotive's new rapid intervention vehicle is being shown. The RIV came from a need to have a rapid, deployable, lightweight vehicle for special operators, and that should fit within a CH-47 cargo helicopter.
The rapid intervention vehicle came about from a very clear customer requirement and a market opportunity we saw both here and internationally for a very rapid, deployable, lightweight vehicle for special operations and special forces, particularly for reconnaissance. And that needed to be something that fitted inside a Chinook or CH-47. We looked around and found that there was nothing really out there that could do the job, so we set about a very rapid development plan, and what you saw today was the final product of that two-year development plan, the RIV, and we're very pleased to launch it out onto the market.
Nimmer took Defense News on the RIV outside of its Abu Dhabi facility. Nimmer has a customer base within the Persian Gulf, and it is looking to market the RIV in Eastern Europe, where the US is pressuring NATO countries to spend 2% of their GDP on defense. Eastern European climate is much different than that of the desert, but there are specific similarities in terrain for the RIV to operate in.
So interestingly, in the design of our vehicles, of course being based here in the UAE, key focus of these vehicles has been performance in the desert environments where you have soft sand, and some of the key characteristics is we need to have high ground clearance, which is quite a notable feature on our vehicles, large tires, central tire inflation, which allows us to adjust the tire pressure on the go, all of which gives us a low ground pressure, which is vital for mobility in the sand. Interestingly, that has very similar positive effects in alternative climates like snow and mud, where users have the same requirement to have low ground pressure. So those mobility characteristics have the same benefit in giving mobility in different terrains. Of course, for those colder climates, Nimmer then looks at providing a winterization kit to the vehicle, engine heating, cabin heating, ensuring the necessary fuel systems are heated in order to cope with colder environments when one typically starts going from below -10 up to -32 or even colder. So that ensures we don't just have a product for the hot desert and climates within the GCC, but gives the vehicles a much broader market in support of a lot of the programs that we're currently pursuing in Eastern Europe and elsewhere.
When we come back, we'll go up close with the military's new handgun and see the highlights of the first ever Defense News Conference. September marked the first ever Defense News Conference with some of the defense community's top leaders coming together to discuss some of the biggest issues in national security. Here's a look at some of the highlights.
Our number one priority has to be to keep our nation safe.
The week after Labor Day can be an exciting time in Washington, and at the Defense News Conference, a wide range of speakers provided their insight on the complicated state of America's national defense.
We have more complex, dangerous threats that at the same time.
House Armed Services Chair Mac Thornberry opened the event, providing his take on the continuing debate over increasing military spending.
What we have seen too much of in recent years is that defense spending is held hostage for other priorities. And it's true on both sides. You've got Republicans who will say, I know you need more for defense, and I will vote to increase defense if you will cut other spending dollar for dollar.
Thornbury also spoke on the threat of a continuing resolution to the armed services. But within hours of his remarks, President Donald Trump announced a deal to do just that, setting another funding battle in December. Another headliner was Navy Secretary Richard Spencer, who addressed 2 recent collisions involving Pacific-based destroyers that left 17 sailors dead. Spencer detailed how the Navy will work with unlikely sources to find a solution.
We have reached out to industry who have gone through various different meaningful events and come out the other side. BP North America with Deepwater Horizon, Crowley Marine, which has created a very admirable safety program called the Road to Zero, turning around their safety record.
While current events played a huge role in the conference, the future was also discussed, particularly for the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter.
Pilot jumps in the jet, fires it up, panoramic cockpit display comes up. Envision a little window that pops up and says, latest EODAS software update ready for download, yes or no? Similar to what you do on your smartphone.
Finally, attendees also heard from panel discussions on everything from innovation, naval development, the future of NATO, and defending space assets.
We have seen it's not just a postulated threat, which it used to be. We've actually seen demonstrations of threats that would have negative effects, if you will, on our assets. So what we're trying to do is, like I said earlier, rush to get to a place where we are countering those threats.
Defense News also got many exclusive interviews at the event. You can find those, along with in-depth coverage, at defensenews.com. Also in September was the Defense Security Enterprise International Show, or DSCI, in London. While there, naval warfare reporter David Larder got a chance to check out the Royal Navy's technology testbed, the HMS Argyll.
Hi, this is David Larder with Defense News. We're reporting from DSCI in London. Right now we're on board the HMS Argyll, which is a Type 23 frigate. I'm standing here with Lieutenant Commander David Techner, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the ship and a little bit about the technology that's on board and what makes it special. So, Lieutenant Commander, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Good morning.
So, tell me a little bit about the ship, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. As you mentioned, it's the UK's Type 23 frigate class. It's an anti-submarine warfare frigate. Its primary aim. We're recently out of upkeep, a garaging period, if you like. That was nearly 100 weeks long. We needed that sort of work because this frigate is now 26 years old. It's the oldest we're operating in the fleet. But during that period, we installed some of the UK's most advanced weapons technology into it. This is all part of deconflicting and de-risking the UK's future frigate procurement process, which is for the Type 26 Global Combat Ship. So part of that equipment fit was the Sea Scepter surface-to-air missile system. That comes with updated data transfer, command systems, and the target indication radar, the 997 medium-range radar. Further on, as we move to the back of the ship, we have now the UK's Wildcat maritime attack helicopter. That carries with it the Stingray anti-submarine torpedo and the Sea Venom and Sea Martlet anti-surface missile, one offering a longer range against bigger craft, and the Sea Martlet offering a shorter range, faster responding weapon to be used against fast, small craft such as jet skis against the asymmetric threat.
So tell me a little bit about the next few weeks. As you mentioned, you get out of a very lengthy refit period in the shipyards. Can you walk us through first a little bit about what went into that period and some of the things that you did to get the ship ready for these new systems, and a little bit about what the next few weeks looks like as you get ready to get back into fully into the fleet?
Sure. Well, first of all, we've got to take the frigate back from the company that's done the upkeep work. So all of that is handing over through measurement and trials the equipment all over the ship in a known state. That started with basics such as water, firefighting systems and accommodation, all the way up to doing complex trials with the propulsion system and the weapon systems. Most of that is complete. The one aspect outstanding is to go and continue the firings of the surface-to-air missile system. We'll be heading up to areas off Scotland to do that over the next couple of months. That's all programmed and expected to go very well. and by the end of this year, we should be well in back towards the fleet.
Can you talk a little bit about the advantages that C-Scepter has over the legacy systems?
Yeah, sure. So C-Scepter replaced a system called Sea-Wolf. That was known as a point defense weapon system. So that is essentially for self-defense, or it can do a goal-keeping type operation, which protects a system, protects a unit very close to you. We've extended the range, which allows us to protect other vessels within a task group, very much looking at the UK's maritime task group operations with bringing into service the Queen Elizabeth class aircraft carrier.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for showing us about the ship. For Defense News, this is David Larder.
Both the Army and Marine Corps are set to get a new handgun to replace the Beretta M9. So at the Modern Day Marine Exposition in Quantico, Virginia, ground combat reporter Ton South went hands-on with the new weapon and explains some of the differences.
So here we have two variants of the same pistol, both are military sidearms. On the right here is the M17, which is the Army's new modular handgun system. It's made by Sig Sauer, as you see here. It's got the extended magazine of 21 rounds. Now that's the full-size sidearm. It's going to replace the M9. It's being tested right now at Fort Bragg by the Army. On the Marine side, one of their top gunners, Chief Warrant Officer 5 Christian Wade down in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina with 2nd Marine Division is testing or getting ready to test the compact version of this. And it's more built for like a concealed carry. Now it still fires a 9mm, you see here. Now it has a 17-round magazine. It can have a 21-round magazine with an extender very similar to the full size. Now in every aspect these are the same gun except for size. So you can see them side by side. The XM17 is the longer barreled version, slightly wider but not too much. These also being modular, as they're called in the military, you can adjust the grips, you can adjust the width, you can do all kinds of things with them. And it also comes in a 40 caliber variant, which in the future either the Marines or the Army could adopt, but for now they're sticking with the 9mm.
One of the largest defense trade shows in the United States is the Association of the Army's October annual meeting in Washington, D.C. Here's a look at some of the sights and sounds from Military Times' Charles E. Panzino.
We're here at the AUSA annual meeting and there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Let's grab an AUSA show daily, thanks T7, and see what's going on the show floor. You're probably familiar with the classic green of a John Deere tractor, but these can also be converted to military specs. This is based on the platform of the M Gator, which has been around since the 90s, but the Army can customize it to fit whatever it needs for its mission. It also has just been certified to be able to be loaded onto an Osprey for deployment. Northrop Grumman is testing a virtual adaptive training system that can help you identify what aircraft are flying around and then also take them down. With land nav, you have to count your paces to know where you are. And underwater, you used to have to count your kicks. But with the new Seamaster underwater navigation system, it tracks where you are using Doppler and GPS. Even though there's a lot of cool stuff to see at the AUSA conference, a popular booth is the one with service dogs. The dogs with Guardian Angels have been trained in a lot of different tasks that can help service members who've been wounded in combat. This includes bringing them items such as a newspaper. Yay! We're here with Travis from IBM, who's using a drone equipped with IBM's Watson technology from the cloud to inspect a communications tower. Using this technology, the drone can compare images of this communications tower to previous images to see if there's anything that needs to be fixed or any specialty parts that need to be purchased. With more than 26,000 attendees, that wraps up this year's AUSA annual meeting. Charles E. Panzino, Defense News Weekly.
When we come back, we visit the Dubai Airshow and go to the Reagan National Defense Forum in California. On this week's Money Minute, personal finance expert Jeanette Mack lets us know just how much money you might need to save for retirement.
The U.S. Government Services Administration says you should have saved about 80% of your pre-retirement income once you retire. So say you're making $50,000 a year right now. When you retire, you'll need the equivalent of $40,000 per year after that. If that sounds like a lot, don't worry. With time and planning, you can do it. Whether you're just starting out or you're in the middle of your career, your TSP or your 401k is the key to your nest egg. These growth-based accounts give you the power of compounded returns. So the more you contribute, the more your savings can grow. If you don't have access to a workplace plan or you're looking for an additional stream of income in retirement, contributing to an IRA is another great option. Military retirees in particular have a unique advantage. They often retire with some working years left. This means a career after the military or even business ownership can be a possibility. If you've been working for a while and already have a sizable nest egg, then wealth preservation should be your goal. Consider investing in bonds and government-backed securities to reduce risk. While the returns are less, they outweigh the possibility of losing money to risky investments. Check with a financial advisor if you're unsure about reaching your retirement goal. By planning for tomorrow today, your future self will thank you.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll see you next week. To get more defense news coverage, be sure to visit our website at defensenews.com and subscribe to our early bird brief delivered to your inbox every weekday morning to get you ready to start the day. And when we come back, we'll visit the Dubai Airshow and go to the Reagan National Defense Forum in California. November marked the Dubai Airshow, and the United States had a big presence at the event, which is one of the world's largest air shows. Here's a look at America's role and how American aircraft even got to the show.
There's huge emphasis right now in the Department of Defense on strengthening our partners and allies, from it being one of the top 3 priorities of the Secretary of Defense and top 5 of our Secretary-in-Chief.
Heidi Grant was the top Air Force official at the Dubai Airshow. She was at the front of one of 3 main efforts for the American government at the show, holding talks between the United States and other air forces.
There are a lot of common security challenges, and it ranges from counterinsurgency to high-end conflict concerns. And then we take it a step further from there to say, well, what capability is it that you want to develop and what capacity? So those have been the main things, and the areas of interest are anywhere from, ISR to air refueling requirements to strike capability.
Another effort was American companies talking to foreign air forces about possible deals and working together in the future.
International sales matter so much to our companies. All of the major companies, 25 to 30% international sales. And increasingly, I think you'll find the aftermarket becomes that much more important for the supply chain. So our companies, large, mediums, and small, are all here in force, and they're all looking for opportunities to try to send the message that America is the first and best partner of choice for our customers and our partners.
The final side was the exhibition, as almost a dozen aircraft from the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps were on display. They ranged from the F-22 Raptor stealth fighter to a Marine V-22 Osprey. While getting them to the airshow wasn't exactly easy, they were the main part in making the U.S. the largest foreign presence at the Dubai Airshow.
We worked with the different components to figure out which aircraft were actually available in the AOR. So most of these came straight from the CENTCOM, AVCENT, NAVCENT, MARCENT, AOR. From there, if we weren't able to get an aircraft from there, then we would lobby one of the other components from another MAGCOM, in this case USAFE. So U.S. Air Forces in Europe is where we were able to source our F-16s.
December was the Reagan National Defense Forum held at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum in Simi Valley, California. While many of the leaders there speak at other events, they were surprisingly candid at the forum.
Each person could serve as a keynote in giving a major address at any large event.
The Reagan National Defense Forum has only been around 5 years, but it already has a reputation as the event in the national defense community. One highlight was National Security Advisor Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, discussing the upcoming Trump administration national security strategy.
President Trump will soon unveil the details of his new strategy, but I can tell you now that it will focus on protecting our homeland, advancing American prosperity, preserving peace through strength, a phrase the origins of which will not be lost on this audience.
Another highlight was the commander of the U.S. Strategic Command expressing his frustration with the current acquisition system.
Let's say, what do we want the next missile warning satellite to be? What do we want it to be? I'll tell you what I want it to be. I want it to be basically a commercial bus that we can buy from anybody. I don't care. I want it to fit in the current ground system so I don't have to buy a new ground system. And then I want to invest a lot of money into a very good sensor that can do strategic missile warning for this country, and I want to put that sensor on the satellite. Boeing can do that. Lockheed can do that. Any of the nation's industry can do that. Why does our process say it takes 12 years and it'll be risky whether we can get there from here? That's ridiculous.
Several other panels featured key leaders from across Congress, the Pentagon, and the defense industry. But the day was capped by former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta and CIA Director Mike Pompeo, with Pompeo insisting that President Trump's Twitter account was helping America's security.
I have seen things the president has put on his Twitter account actually have a real-world impact on our capacity to understand what's going on in other places of the world. That is, our adversaries responded to those tweets in ways that were helpful to us, to understand command and control issues, who's listening to what messages, how those messages are resonating around the world.
But former Secretary Panetta had a different view.
I understand he likes to tweet, but in the very least, if he's going to tweet, he ought to at least have some policy process to develop, what are the policies you want to advance, and then let him tweet the hell out of it. But at least there's a policy process involved.
That's all we have time for this week. But if you want to see and read more, be sure to visit defensenews.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.